Mata Ki Jai echoes with a whizzing sound when Indian missiles strike their targets.
जब हमारे ड्रोन दुश्मन के किले की दीवारों को ढहा देते हैं, जब हमारी मिसाइलें सनसनाती हुई निशाने पर पहुंचती हैं, तो दुश्मन को सुनाई देता है भारत माता की जय। जब रात के अंधेरे में भी जब हम सूरज उगा देते हैं, तो दुश्मन को दिखाई देता है भारत माता की जय। जब हमारी फौजें न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की धमकी की हवा निकाल देती है, तो आकाश से पाताल तक एक ही बात गूंजती है, भारत माता की जय। भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय!
He added that the very thought of India's drones and missiles is enough to keep Pakistan awake at night. Standing before the S-400 air defense system that played a crucial role in Operation Sindoor, the Prime Minister sent out a strong message to Pakistan, issuing a stern warning to Pakistan. Prime Minister Modi said, if any terror incident took place in India, we will hunt down the perpetrators.
जब हमारी बहनों बेटियों का सिंदूर छीना गया, तो हमने आतंकियों के फन को उनके घर में घुस के कुचल दिया। भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! वो कायरों की तरह छिप कर आए थे, लेकिन भूल गए उन्होंने जिसे ललकारा है वो हिंद की सेना है। आपने उन्हें सामने से हमला करके मारा। आपने आतंक के तमाम बड़े अड्डों को मिट्टी में मिला दिया।
जब सिंदूर छीना तो हमने घर में घुसकर मारा। Prime Minister said he was monitoring the entire action throughout. The Prime Minister said, addressing the three services, Navy, Army and the Air Force from the lands of Braveheart. Prime Minister said that he is very proud of the forces.
भारत माता की बुद्ध की भी धरती है और गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी की भी धरती है। गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी ने कहा था, 1.25 लाख से एक लड़ाऊं, चिड़ियन ते मैं बात तुड़ाऊं, तबे गुरु गोविंद सिंह नाम कहाऊं। अधर्म के नाश और धर्म की स्थापना के लिए शस्त्र उठाना, ये हमारी परंपरा है।
Prime Minister congratulated the Indian Air Force personnel for the strikes carried out on the terrorist bases in Pakistan and POK. And these are the visuals which we are running, that this is how we blasted the GBs of the Pak forces. These are the visuals. He said there is no place in Pakistan where terrorists can sit and breathe in peace. This is how we destroyed the camp. compilation of the visuals on the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. This is how we destroyed the Pakistani posts. This was the ferocity of the Indian attack. This is how our artillery rode.
आतंक के आकाओं को अब समझ आ गया है। भारत की ओर नजर उठाने का एक ही अंजाम होगा, तबाही। भारत में निर्दोष लोगों का खून बहाने का एक ही अंजाम होगा, विनाश और महाविनाश। जिस पाकिस्तानी सेना के भरोसे ये आतंकी बैठे थे, भारत की सेना, भारत की एयरफोर्स और भारत की नेवी ने उस पाकिस्तानी सेना को भी धूल चटा दी है। भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! आपने पाकिस्तानी फौज को भी बता दिया है, पाकिस्तान में ऐसा कोई ठिकाना नहीं है जहां बैठकर आतंकवादी चैन की सांस ले सके।
The air defense system team also received special praise for having kept the Pakistan Air Force aircraft at bay and neutralizing the drone threat. His visit to Adampur also busted Pakistan like that the airbase had been badly damaged. Reciting a line of poetry about Maharana Pratap's legendary horse Chetak, the Prime Minister said that these lines apply perfectly to today's modern weapons.
हमारे ड्रोन्स, हमारी मिसाइलें, उनके बारे में तो सोचकर पाकिस्तान को कई दिन तक नींद नहीं आएगी। कौशल दिखलाया चालों में, कौशल दिखलाया चालों में, उड़ गया भयानक भालों में, निर्भीक गया वह ढालों में, सरपट दौड़ा करवालों में। ये पंक्तियां महाराणा प्रताप के प्रसिद्ध घोड़े चेतक पर लिखी गई है, लेकिन ये पंक्तियां आज के आधुनिक भारतीय हथियारों पर भी फिट बैठती है। मेरे वीर साथियों, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर से आपने देश का आत्मबल बढ़ाया।
And lastly, the Prime Minister said India will not tolerate any nuclear blackmail.
जब हमारी फौजें न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की धमकी की हवा निकाल देती है, तो आकाश से पाताल तक एक ही बात गूंजती है, भारत माता की जय।
And I'm joined by Lieutenant General PGS Pannu, former Deputy Chief, Indian Integrated Defence Staff, and Air Marshal VPS Chana, Defence and Strategy Expert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. It's a pleasure having you on my show. I'll also be joined by Savio Rodriguez, founder and editor-in-chief of the Goa Chronicle. Let me straight away go to General Panuza. What's the message that Prime Minister has given by visiting the Adampur Air Force Base? What message goes out, sir?
Karthika, the first message is that the Prime Minister himself went to the front line where the air warriors were, and he has called off two bluffs of Pakistan. One is the nuclear bluff and second is the information bluff. In the information bluff, of course, he's standing at the airfield which Pakistan has been reporting has been targeted. and also many airfields such as Adampur have been destroyed, are ineffective. But then Prime Minister standing there with the air warriors in such a absolute brilliant, bright day sent that message not only by meeting them but also making some statements. So this visit was not only symbolic, it was purposeful and also very demonstrative, because he was not only one who was witnessing, but he was a participant of Sindoor, and therefore he felt that the air warriors who've been participating in this short, intense part of war, that is limited conflict, he should be part of the warriors that he's been actually controlling, and he's been sitting in the ops room to really minute to minute look at how the whole thing is unfolding. Also, what is important here is that he's spoken about the new normal, the new age of war fighting, and he's been talking about technology. What Chetak he's talking about is the armed forces, how swiftly they have been put into action, and how victorious this war machinery has been. So therefore, he was all in praise for indigenous equipment, and also how the new age in which drones and data is going to be used. So I think war is always work in progress. Preparation for war is never complete. So at the moment, what we have was enough to tell Pakistan that the nuclear blackmail will not work. They have been using terror as the basic form of warfare. They have been running a proxy war campaign for over 3 decades. And I think it was time when he said, no more blood and no more water will flow together. So I think he has made a number of symbolic, demonstrative, and absolutely perfect statements, which sets the complete new paradigm for dealing with Pakistan, in which he says if we talk to Pakistan, it will be only on terrorism and on the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which belongs to India.
Okay, Aim Ashwar Rana, the symbolism of going to Adampur base, he could have gone to any other base. Can we start from Adampur base for our viewers?
I think he was rubbing salt to their wounds. He is a master of symbolism and political signaling. And I believe every single word that he spoke was nothing less than a missile hitting the Pakistan very, very hard and very, very deep. The kind of josh that he created amongst the air warriors who were there, I'm sure it was for them a moment of life to be able to spend time with the Prime Minister and hear him one-on-one basis. Also, the way he interacted with the air warriors, absolutely, you saw that he patting one of the warrant officers as if he was his long-lost friend. So, every single move was a great signaling, so to say, whether it was connect with the armed forces or it was signaling to the Pakistan that see, and that one pic says all. You see this S-400 standing tall in the backdrop with a MiG-29, and then he talking with that backdrop. And sending his very, very clear-cut message, what General Pannu also talked about. And also, one of the most relevant part of the Adampur was that, he was calling the bluff of Pakistan that S-400 and this was destroyed. But the fact was, this was one base which has traditionally been very, very prime air base, whether any of the warfare, whether it was 65, 71, Kargil operations, it was one of the primary bases, so to say, which inflicted heavy damage on Pakistan in all the wars. And recently, the major thing in Kargil ops, it was a staging base, also a launching base. So I think there were far too many signals that were being sent across, and they were sent across very, very perfectly. There are a whole lot of air warriors who are there. I'm sure those who were positioned there are a lot of AD units who would be deployed out. It is not that all air warriors are only restricted to air bases. There are AD units which are deployed out and which remain deployed there for months. I was CO of a AD unit in the same very base, and we stayed deployed in Kargil as well as in other operations for more than a year, out in open, out in field. So for all those people who are there doing day in, day out, working towards making this air defense very, very efficient. I think his messaging to them, thanksgiving to them in particular, and to entire armed forces personnel in general was, I think, very, very emphatic and very, very carefully and very, very precisely delivered.
General Panu, the two questions for you, sir. First, when Prime Minister said, "Goli ka jawab gole se milega," are we supposed to interpret in a way that any act of terror, the response would be so disproportionate that it will become unbearable, a cost for Pakistan to bear?
Kartike, Goli ka jawab gola actually makes it look that this is now the time that India has changed its doctrines, and doctrinal shift is towards punitive deterrence rather than equaling the enemy's action. We would shift it to disproportionate attack. So if the ceasefire agreement, which Pakistanis had actually broken, they were actually trying to take some opportunities, trying to figure out whether the Indian air defense system was as potent as it was on the first day. I think they tried to take a chance, and therefore reach of ceasefire at that time made the Prime Minister says, "Gole ka jawab gole se dunga," where the Indian Navy was now ready, and even ground forces were ready to attack in any which way. If the escalation happened, so be it. That was the message by the Prime Minister. And also, there was another message that the Chief of Army Staff has actually told the Army commanders that now you're weapons free, you can do what you want. There is no limit to how much you can punish the adversary. So I think these were the messages in this Gole ka jawab gole se.
And Air Marshal Rana, generally people have seen leaders in front of a tank or in front of an artillery, in front of an armored vehicle, or in front of an armored vehicle. But this time the takeaway was you have those anti-missile systems which were at the back of the Prime Minister, and that was being showcased. I mean to say, it's such a long journey. I know it's symbolic, but generally if you look at those war photographs, you have every sort of plane, every sort of tank which is part of public imagination. Like I was a child, I read about Arjun, DRDO, T-72, Abrams, the American tank. But to have an anti-missile system, I think is the first.
Absolutely, Karthik. I think this is the first time the entire India has seen this system. I don't think it was on display anywhere else ever. And it was not a photo op. It was a political signaling at its best. So very, very, like I said, very, very carefully chosen. Look at that shot. I mean, it says it all. It buries all the lies that Pakistan talked about. But more than that, if you see this entire visit, you see his interaction with the troops there, and the kind of absolutely informal, which is very, very unusual for any political leader. But he has been doing this. He gives a lot of headache to his security staff. But here, of course, he was in a air base, now purely secured place. But otherwise, also he has been doing this. He interacts freely with, as free as probably he could, with all the people. And here it was the selfie moment for all his people. And like I said, it is probably the moment of life for all those people who were there. It's a perfect leadership style, where you are in absolutely informal interaction and literally having a heart-to-heart talk with all those people. And you see the kind of casualness even amongst the soldiers, who otherwise are supposed to be very, very stiff. You see the kind of casualness it is there when they are interacting with PM. So that says it all. I mean, it is the leadership at its best, I suppose.
Absolutely, and I think the role of the political leadership is to inspire people in the right direction. But let me come to another hard issue. General Pannu, if you look at the press release of the DGMOs, there is a sense you get that reduction of troops is being talked about. My question to you is, can Pakistan be trusted now But can they be trusted with reduction of troops? For the benefit of our viewers, can you just tell us what do we mean when we talk about reduction of troops? I played out those visuals at LOC. This is how Indian troops send the message, in a merciless bombing, and this has been released to us to show that what sort of action that our army has taken on the border. But can the Pakistani army be trusted? Let me be even more specific, sir.
What happens is normally when there is external exigency from the normal posture, defensive posture, you go into the augmented posture. And that is not for anybody to understand whether these are going to be offensive troops or these are, just beefed up troops. That is always left to the discretion of the commanders. So as a result, obviously, the Indian military is large. The troops in normal deployment duties on the line of control are only that strength which is required there. And in case the operations were to last longer or became more intense, or if there was an opportunity for India to go into conventional operations, obviously the troops would have to be ready. And now that they have reached a stage where they have intelligence, information, probably some understanding and assurance that nothing much is going to happen, or they understand that the capability of Pakistan is now broken down to a point that much lesser troops would be required, or these extra troops would not be required. So they are possibly hinting at that.
Air Marshal Rana, Prime Minister and other senior functionaries, they very categorically said that the degrading of the Pakistanis air forces took place. Can you please explain to our viewers what is that? We degraded 20% of their military air infrastructure. When we say we degraded it, what do we mean by that?
If you see the kind of infrastructure that the air base has, it has primarily the runways, it has the ops complexes, it has the air defense command control setups, it has radars, it has missiles, and likewise, different base will have a different configuration. So when we talk about there's the kind of damage that has been inflicted in various weapon systems to Pakistan, which has been really devastating. So it is a rough guess, I suppose. Nobody would have really seen, but this rough also, I mean, it could be 25, it could be 18% of other thing. But primarily, what it means is that the war-waging capacity of the country through the aerial means has been degraded by 20%. That means whatever they could launch on us or on their adversary has been reduced by 20%. That means their capability to launch aircraft, capability to launch missiles, capability to even do the surveillance through their air defense radars has been reduced drastically. And you see the kind of satellite imagery that has been put up for everybody to see. The damage has been considerable. So I'm not too sure, even if it is only restricted to 20. In my opinion, it could be even more. Because whenever an airfield is struck, it is not only striking the target where we have struck. It creates secondary explosions because of the debris that falling anywhere. You have ammunition dump, you have fuel dumps, you have aircrafts out in open. So the real damage assessment would actually come little later with a detailed analysis of the satellite imagery. As of now, we are only seeing where we struck and what was the result. But there could be a lot of it which are secondary. The kind of losses that we had seen even in Bolari, almost 50 people had died, and there's a lot of social media is also in circulation where they agreed for 12 people or 11 people that have died in that attack. And if you see the number, the kind of people whom they have shown, there are army soldiers and there is a air defense weapon controller, a fighter controller, and there are other technicians. So that means this is primarily has come to one of their either AD setup which has been totally blasted. Then there must have been the AD guns or other army thing which has come in that, if it is from the same base. And when we go in detail analysis of the satellite picture, I'm sure we are going through to have more and better analysis done. I'm sure there his capability would have been degraded even more than 20%. I suppose.
Okay, I'm also joined by Savio Rodriguez, founder and editor-in-chief of the Goa Chronicle. Savio, this is also about political messaging, narrative setting, giving the right message, holding the right theme, and also hand-holding the public opinion. Your comments, Savio.
Karthikeya, thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure, pleasure.
Let's understand one thing very clearly, and it's something that all of us as Indians must understand, is that this was a war against terrorism. Terrorism emanating out of Pakistan. This was not a war against Pakistan or the people of Pakistan. What the government has done and what the Indian Armed Forces has done is worked very strategically, very precisely in targeting those terror camps that were responsible for terror activities against India. And Operation Sindoor still continues. The Operation Sindoor is not over. We will continue to be defensive. We will continue to be offensive as far as terrorism emanating out of Pakistan is concerned. The message that we are giving out, not only to the country, but the rest of the world, is that India's war against terrorism is going to be something that is continuous. It's going to be something that we are going to be watching very closely. We're going to be dealing with people within India that support terrorism. We're going to deal with people outside of India that allow for terrorism to flourish. Pakistan is a terror state. The world must open its eyes to the reality that Pakistan is a terror state. The fact that the US claims to have mediated with India and Pakistan personally, I think it's Donald Trump doing what Donald Trump does best, which is jumping off the gun. Donald Trump would love to claim credit for everything and anything and everything. And strangely, he's the same man who speaks against terrorism and then takes a $400 million plane gifted by Qatar. So we know the hypocrisy of Donald Trump. We don't need a Donald Trump to tell India how to run its business, how to deal with terrorism. The Indian armed forces, the Indian political class are one of the best in the world, especially the armed forces. The precision, Karthikeya, I mean, this is something that the country must know, that they didn't go helter-skelter. They did it precisely. They knew where the targets were. They had 21 on their list.
Savio,
they went after 9 terror camps.
Savio,
and they went after the 9 terror camps with precise
Savio, there is also one more thing which people have not spoken about. After so many years, there's a perceptible mood shift in people. The sort of backing the government has for a very offensive action against Pakistan is highest today.
I agree.
It's very high. I mean to say, a government can take any decision and this government will have the complete backing of the people. So it's not about just the relationship between people and the government. It's about Indians have no appetite left for any shenanigans of Pakistan.
Exactly.
The people of India are angry. That is why there is support for Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy, or the political leadership at the helm of affairs. 100%. That's the point I'm trying to make. People are looking from the perspective top-down. Top-down perspective. I'm saying there's a bottom-up perspective. Log naraz hain bahut zyada.
Correct.
They want a bigger, a stronger action also. I mean, so there's a public support for this.
One of the problems that we encountered in the initial phase when the ceasefire was tweeted about by Donald Trump, there was genuinely palpable anger with the people across the board saying what has happened. Till it quieted down and we realized that this was a strategic pause, not an essential ceasefire. It was an understanding, not an agreement. The point of the matter is that the Indian government, the Indian armed forces are very clear, and the people of India are very clear. Terrorism emanating out of Pakistan must be dealt with sternly and must be eradicated. And the process is an ongoing process. And that's why I believe it was essential for India to send out a message to the rest of the world that we will deal with terrorism. Our armed forces are extremely capable and are strong enough to deal a deafening blow to terrorism in Pakistan. And I believe what we showed in the last couple of days is that India is not a mad nation as far as its armed forces are concerned. They are very well researched. They know their targets. They know how to get to it. It has sent a message to Pakistan and the countries that support Pakistan that if ever India decides to go on an offensive, then Pakistan will turn to rubble, just like those terror camps, those 9 terror camps turned to rubble. Pakistan itself will turn to rubble. So it's a time for Pakistan to introspect, though I doubt they will, because Islamic radicalism and Islamic terrorism
Savio, there's
is
also a difference. India is a country, a nation which has an army, which has an air force, which has a navy. But you have an army there which has got a country for itself. That's the difference.
Correct.
And it's truly unprofessional, undemocratic. But before I close the show and go to the other part, General Panu, what does it mean for Kashmir? Because that's the moot question. It's started from there. Will it give breathing space to our forces? Will it allow people of Kashmir to prosper and live more stable life? Or do you think that the Pakistan after some time, like Hamas and Gaza, will be back to the same shenanigans? Can you please unmute yourself, sir?
Karthikeyan, Pakistan is not going to bend its ways in a hurry. They have a problem at hand. They have got huge amount of radicals who have been promised, certain place under the umbrella of the military. They will have to look after them, otherwise they'll eat them up. To glue themselves together, Pakistan will cease to exist if they don't cry Kashmir or they don't cry religion. So therefore, today the Prime Minister has made it very clear that we are not going to A, accept terrorism, and B, if we're going to talk to Pakistan, it is going to be only terrorism or the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. There is no other topic that would be there for discussion. Now, in this, how the future unfolds would be that Pakistan is going to continue to do things. Maybe they will take a pause. They will make some promises. They might even say things which are very pleasing to ears. They also might get invited here to India to remain good for some time. In the meanwhile, they would rework their entire strategy, but they are not going to leave Kashmir to just be prosperous and part of India.
I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you, sir. I have really run short of time, but I do agree with you that I don't think that the basic nature of the Pakistani state or the Pakistani army is going to change, and that is where our challenge is, and that is where Indian realism will smash Pakistani shenanigans. Thank you all of you for joining my show. But this was on point one. Do not go away, because on the other side, as we transition, we are going to look at how India has stopped Donald Trump's attempt to internationalize the Kashmir issue. On Saturday, US President Trump claimed that India and Pakistan had agreed to a ceasefire brokered by the US. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio made a shocking statement saying that the countries had agreed to start talks at neutral site. In another post, Trump promised to mediate and arrive at a solution to the Kashmir issue after 1,000 years. I mean to say, he should understand Pakistan happened in 1947. There was no Pakistan. It was only Hindustan. And then there was Afghanistan, but there was no Pakistan. And talked about increase in trade between both India and Pakistan. He plainly tried to internationalize the Kashmir issue, which has fallen flat. India has strongly contradicted Trump's claim, saying trade and terror don't go together. And anyway, most important of all, he has no business of speaking about Kashmir. It's a bilateral issue. It doesn't involve anyone, And on this, let me just straight away invite Ambassador Veena Sikri. Savio continues to be with me. Madam, my first question, and Rami Niranjan Desai, Distinguished Fellow India Foundation, has also joined me from Bhutan. Thank you so much. Madam, why is Trump trying to internationalize Kashmir? What's the motive? What's the play, madam?
Well, I think if you look at it from one point of view, when President Trump was campaigning, he promised his nation that he would solve the Ukraine-Russia crisis within 2 days and the Israel-Hamas crisis within 1 week. And none of that has happened. Now, we all know that these issues are totally bogged down and the hostilities are still going on, and it's a very difficult situation. So maybe he thought that here's one issue the India-Pakistan conflict, and he would show that he was the one who brought the peace. But we know, as a matter of fact, that it was Pakistan that ran to America when their Air Force bases were totally destroyed and decimated, and India was very categorical that it is only if the Pakistan DGMO comes to us and asks for a cessation of military firing, then we will consider it. So it is very clear that we are not going to have any, mediation, any intervention by a third party. If the Pakistan DGMO wants a cessation of firing, let him come and talk to us. And that's exactly what happened. The DGMO of Pakistan came and asked us, and we said, all right. And we have not called it a ceasefire. It's not a Yudh Viram. It is just a pause, an adjournment. The Prime Minister, in his address to the nation last evening, used the word stagit kiya gaya hai. It's been paused. And we are absolutely ready at any time to resume the hostilities and to resume our action, whatever we consider appropriate against Pakistan, if they go back to resort to terror. So I think our Prime Minister's very strong assertion that terror and talks don't go together, terror and trade don't go together, and blood and water cannot flow together. So the keeping in abeyance of the Indus Waters Treaty remains very much on the card. It is still in abeyance, and it will remain so for the indefinite future. And at the same time, if there's anything to talk to Pakistan about bilaterally, without any third-party mediation, not at any neutral site, it's only bilaterally, then these talks can only be about terror and about return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir to India. I think after 5th of August 2019, when Article 370 was abrogated, it's very clear that the issue of Jammu and Kashmir on the international stage does not exist anymore. In fact, even in the United Nations Security Council resolution adopted a few days ago, the word disputed was not used in that resolution after a very, very long time. Although Pakistan, I believe, tried their best, even though they are a member of the non-permanent member of the Security Council right now, but they could not get that word disputed into the text of the Security Council resolution. So J&K is no longer disputed territory. For us, the only concern is to get back Pakistan-occupied J&K, and we're prepared to talk to Pakistan about that. That's all that can ever be talked about J&K. But President Trump is continuing to show as though and he even made a tweet yesterday saying that we told them that we won't have any trade with them. But today, our spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, Ranveer Jaiswal, he made it very clear that there's never been any talk about linking trade to this question of the cessation of hostilities or the cessation of military firing. And he's made it very clear that these issues have just not been talked about, and it was just something that President Trump may have said, in the spur of the moment, as he does on many, many things. So I think that India has been very clear in pointing the road that we want to follow to President Trump and to the rest of the world, and that we are determined to follow that road. We're not going to change if President Trump or anybody else comes and tells us to, use any kind of methodology of talking about Jammu and Kashmir or anything, unless we have said quite clearly what we want, and we're not going to move away from that. Prime Minister's visit today to Adampur Air Base was absolutely remarkable, because the josh of the airmen and the fact that the Prime Minister was amidst them was really palpable. They were so happy and so at their successful participation in this hostilities, their accuracy which they have attacked the airfield, and India's Akash Tir methodology, the combination of artificial intelligence, the made in India ISRO satellites, the NAVIC system of navigation. It has amazed the world because it's shown results. And this is something that the rest of the world is now getting used to. India has a Made in India program that is of world standard and very, very accurate.
Rami, your opening comments?
Karthikeya, good evening. After my dear friend Ambassador Sikri has spoken, there's not much left to say. But let me say this, I think President Trump's statements are a big, big mistake. I think, this is generally, his hubris that we are seeing. It's very typical of his personality, his character. But what I think he doesn't understand that the sensibilities of in India, the history of this issue, and he's being misadvised, or some people have even gone as far as to say that it's maybe some grander strategy at play to try to equate India and Pakistan, which serves their purpose. Now, just please give me 1 minute, because I want to make 3 quick points. First is, I think the first and foremost thing is that, this is our stated position, as Ambassador Sikri said, and it has been for many years, that no third party has anything to do with this issue. And if anything, our stance has only hardened with the revocation of the special status that Jammu and Kashmir had. Number two, Kartike, this seems to be a blatant effort also to internationalize this issue, especially when India really has no need to internationalize it. We're very clear about our stance on it, and when on two different occasions, he has said previously that he has no interest in the ongoing conflict. It is very strange that now suddenly he would jump up and be so involved and, recognize himself as in the role of a peacemaker. Let's not forget that he tried to negotiate, and as Ambassador Sikri said, Russia and Ukraine, that didn't work out. He tried to negotiate Hamas, that didn't work out. Also, I think his phrasing of the assertion that the US administration went on a long night of talks, all of this bravado was also really unnecessary, alienating a lot of the goodwill that he had on ground. Finally, Kartike, it is, in my opinion, it is his misunderstanding of this, equation that he is trying to make between India and Pakistan that is most telling, that is the most problematic. It overlooks the context of terrorism originating from Pakistan and India being the victim. This would not be taken kindly if the US was the victim and the perpetrators of terrorism were being equated to it. We can't even imagine that, because that's how, that's how strong they are on their stance against terrorism if it affects them. But then that is the problem. The West seems to disregard anything that doesn't affect it directly. I think, Kartike, finally, I'd just like to say that Donald Trump and his administration should remember that Indians supported him wholeheartedly. That his clarity and his stance on Islamic terrorism being problematic and the need for everybody to come together and counter it resonated with us. But today, equating a terrorist country that primarily exports terrorism and, if I may say so, beggars, to a country like India that advocates peace over and over again, has a thriving economy that is 10 times bigger than Pakistan, is, in my opinion, ludicrous. And it has upset over 1 billion people, Kartike.
Your opening comments, what's the play here? Why is Trump trying to internationalize an issue? Prime Minister very categorically rejected the whole idea without naming him. But the fact is, his entire team and him are using it. Even the Pak Foreign Affairs Minister now, in one of the broadcasts, a prominent broadcast based out of the United States of America, was speaking about Kashmir.
The two lovely lady panelists were absolutely polite, as they always are. But I'm not going to be polite. I'm going to be a little brash. Okay? I personally think Donald Trump is a joker. And I've always said that he was a joker. The Joker, the character that Chris Nolan made very popular in The Dark Knight. He's an unstoppable force. And he's trying to basically come against an immovable object. The immovable object in this case is India's resilience, India's resistance, and India's strength to the changing geopolitical dynamics around the world. Donald Trump is somebody who assumes that America is great again because Donald Trump is the president of America and it can lord over the rest of the world, as the Lord of the Rings and the Joker thought that he would lord over Gotham. That is Donald Trump for you. But more importantly, I think Donald Trump is a liar. And let me be brutally honest about it. And I've said it to him on a tweet. I've written an article about it. Donald Trump is a liar because the conversation with regards to the trade involvement, which was a statement that came 10 minutes before Prime Minister Modi's speech yesterday, that we spoke about trade and I told them to, work together. There's a lot of trade to do, is all one big lie, because everyone connected to the so-called discussions that I am aware of tell me that that conversation never ever happened. There was no talks of trade. Even in fact, the government has come out and said that there was no discussion whatsoever on trade. So what is Donald Trump trying to do? Donald Trump is trying to tell the world that I am the savior of the world. United States of America is the savior of the world. But what the United States of America and Donald Trump is not understanding is that they are the victims of the Sino-Islamic lobby. And let me tell you how big a hypocrite Donald Trump is. A man who went after Islamic radicalism, who went after and was very strong against Islamic radicalism, has taken a $400 million US dollar plane from Qatar, which is a country known to financing Islamic radicalism and Islamic terrorism. That's the hypocrite Donald Trump is.
He's not only
So
taking, Savio, he is not only taking $400 million plane from Qatar. The news is that, he has also coerced Saudi Arabia to invest $600 billion in the United States of America. We are looking at a very transactional person. Ambassador Sikri, my question to you is this only about Trump, or do you see a shift in American administration's position, madam? Is it one thing, or should we see as two different things?
Well, I must say that, again, when President Trump came to power, one of the things he said clearly, I'm going to dismantle the deep state, I'm going to have, new people. I think his own position on India remains very much the same. But right now, he's led by somebody in the State Department, somebody belonging to the deep state, prepares a text, shows it to him, and he reads it out. So it's a very, I think very wrong aspect that he's doing, because he's not keeping faith with what he set out with. And I must tell you that even in the USA itself, the Indian diaspora has already started addressing very strong messages to Donald Trump, saying, why are you doing this? We voted for you. We supported you. We fought for the election of President Trump. So why now are you doing this kind of equation between India and Pakistan? And why are you weakening your position on terrorism? So I think that Donald Trump is facing a pushback from the Indian diaspora, from many elements within USA. And I'm sure that as the discussions go on between India and US, of course, Marco Rubio will keep in touch with External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, with NSA, Ajit Dovalji, and, the talks will go on. The meeting for the discussions for President Trump to come to India will go on. So in all of these, we have to convey quite unequivocally what we want. But I think the fact that India has proved itself so much superior in the Indian subcontinent, in facing up to Pakistan, that within one series of strikes, we brought Pakistan to their knees and got them running.
Also did a disservice to the country's relationship, madam, because if you go through his bite, Prime Minister very clearly said in today's speech, we have called off the Pakistan's nuclear bluff. He reinstated that stereotype in his earlier bite, saying that there was a possibility of a nuclear exchange. So he was reinforcing a stereotype, Rami, which had already been called off by the Indian government. Surgical strikes hua, Balakot hua, even this has happened. We are trying to call off the nuclear bluff, and he was trying to reinforce the same thing for a maybe future intervention. So I think that it's not. I think that was a very mischievous thing. If you are a friend, you don't do this.
Karthikeya, I think this is a problem that the West suffers from. There is a certain amount of hypocrisy and certain amount of reliability that they lack. Trump's offer, and this sort of unnecessary, uninvited sort of interference is not the first time that an American leader has sought to help India and Pakistan, in the Kashmir dispute. It's happened as early as in 1993 when, when the new, under the Clinton administration, the new State Department's division on South Asia was created, and Rafael at that point had sought to junk the instrument of accession. So this has happened over and over again. Of course, as India's influence grew, Clinton 2.0 administration embraced the fact that, India had to stand on bilateralism. But, this has happened over and over again. And for some reason, I don't know why the West feels that they can always take on or manage or control terrorism, which they've never been able to do, and they've left the world in a mess because of their misunderstanding of what this sort of terrorism is. So I think it's not just mischievous. I think it is a lack of deeper understanding that they are not in control.
But I would always say that in the times of crisis, a country needs to only rely on themselves, their own forces, their own deterrent. I think this has also proved it. People have taken very ambiguous stands. Yes, the world did not stand with Pakistan, but the fact of the matter is that the achievements of Operation Sindoor is because of the political leadership, strength of the armed forces, strength of our diplomatic corps, strength of the nation, and most important of all, for the first time, and I will say this in my show, that there is a great, instead of a top-bottom view that, the leadership has done it, people have liked it, people want the leadership to take the action. There is a great sentiment in this country against Pakistan, highest ever. And this expression has to be understood. Go out for a morning walk and people would say more should have been given to Pakistan. I haven't seen this in my 25 years of journalism, such strong sentiments. On this note, I thank you all of you for joining my show, but I leave you with this bite. Again, a clarification. This clarification has come number of times, but I leave you with this bite. You hear this bite and it tells you that Pakistan is lying and Trump is a liar. I will see you tomorrow at the same time. Thank you and good night.
From the time of Operation Sindoor commenced on 7th May till the understanding on cessation of firing and military action on 10th May, there were conversations between Indian and US leaders on the evolving military situation. The issue of trade did not come up in any of these discussions.
Beyond better, the new Tiguan R line. Volkswagen.